Hello, this is Eden with HelixxVR. Today I'll be taking a look at VRidge by Riftcat. It's a piece of software which lets you play PCVR games without a HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, or similar VR headset. Instead, you can use a mobile phone in a Google Cardboard or a Samsung Gear VR. You can even use a standalone VR headset like an Oculus Go or Vive Focus. It also works in various ways with many different types of controllers. In theory, you could even play motion controller games without motion controllers. Now, just due to the sheer amount of equipment this works with, I'll not be considering this a review as such, but more a video about our experience with the software. Perhaps in the future, if I manage to get my hands on Nolo controllers, or if it adds Oculus Quest support, I'll take another look at that point. For the purposes of this video, I personally tried it with a Samsung S8 Plus in a higher-end Google Cardboard, one of the plastic models with IPD adjustments. I emulated the motion controllers with an Xbox controller. Kerminator from the HelixxVR team tried it with the Oculus Go and the 3DOF controller. Now, neither of these headsets have 6DOF tracking, so we're playing by sitting down and staying in one place. Now, installation and setup was pretty easy on both systems. I downloaded the software on the PC and onto my phone, while Kerminator did the same on his PC and Oculus Go. You then just launch the Riftcat software on the PC and make sure to choose whether you're connecting through Wi-Fi or USB. Now, be warned, not any USB cable will do. If you use USB, you'll need to make sure that it's a data one, not just charging. Next up, you launch the VRidge software on whichever headset or phone you're using. It should show that it's connected. On the PC, go to Configuration and choose your controller. If you're playing a seated game which usually uses a gamepad, this is unneeded. If you plan to emulate the motion controllers, you have quite a few options to try. At this point, you can sign in if you've purchased an account, or you can try a short session for free. I'd recommend trying it first. Finally, you click the play button to launch SteamVR. If this is your first time, you'll need to set it up. So first off, you choose standing and you go through the various calibrations. The only major difference here from a standard setup is that during the floor calibration, instead choose to type in your height. If you don't do this, you'll end up embedded in the floor. First I'll speak a little bit about the visuals. For me, using the Google Cardboard, I wasn't too impressed. The resolution of the phone used is actually similar to the Vive or Rift, but while the image was sharp, it never felt like I could get it in focus. Usually when playing phone VR games, it's not really an issue. I got artifacts sometimes too, which could be distracting. Little flecks of green coming up on screen. On the other hand, Kerminator with an Oculus Go was more impressed. It seems like it wasn't as good as using it natively, but he felt it was fine. He didn't experience any artifacts either. A positive is, on both headsets, tracking head movement wasn't an issue at all, at least as far as it's meant to go, looking up, down, left and right. Neither of us noticed any latency, which was good, especially considering that we were both using Wi-Fi. Next up, the controllers. If the game uses an Xbox controller, a HOTUS, a steering wheel, or whatever else is standard, then you just do that as normal as mentioned. I used an Xbox controller to emulate the Vive controllers, and it was an interesting experience. In a slow-paced game, I think you really could do most things as long as your controllers are needed to stay in front of you. The controllers can be moved in several directions, but they're always locked to your view and move in relation to each other too. You can also use the controller to move around, crouch and jump. It's not really ideal, but it would work for several games. The Oculus Go controller, which Kerminator used, wasn't ideal either. The number of buttons is a lot less than on the Vive or Oculus controllers, so the touchpad is used instead. It can only emulate a single controller and cannot detect depth. Kerminator's reaction to using it wasn't too positive, unfortunately. Generally, aside from having to work within the controller limitations, VRidge works smoothly, most of the time. For some reason, I just couldn't get a game called Project Lux working. I ever saw a white or black screen. Other people have actually gotten the same game working without issue. I had the occasional white or black screen in other games too, but for those it would work 9 times out of 10. It's just the one game that I couldn't get working at all, which was quite odd. There was the occasional loss of connection too, but that was pretty rare. Overall, my feeling on Riftcat's VRidge is that it's a pretty interesting piece of software. It's certainly not as good as using a proper PCVR headset, but it's an interesting way for someone with a modern smartphone to experience a limited version of PCVR on a much lower budget of $20 for the software and Google Cardboard. I'd mostly suggest trying it with games which do not require motion controllers, unless you have the extra equipment for this. So that's all for this video. As always, this was Eden from HelixxVR. If you'd like to see more content like this, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the alert button to see notifications.